You know, since the rest of the media members were scared to do their preseason polls for the Big 12 football season, we decided we're not scared over at PHNX Sun Devils. Isn't that right, Phil? Basically Friday, even though it's a Thursday here on PHNX Sun Devils. Also, happy Shane Diefenbach birthday day here on PHNX Sun Devils. Coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. That's right. It's myself, Eric Ruby, Anthony Totri, still on vacation. So, of course, joining me is the incomparable Ralph Amsden, ready to break down and tier every single Big 12 team. And, of course, making all the magic happen behind the Mac. It's the Deli Man, no longer the Deli Boy because it's his birthday. It's Shane Diefenbach. First things first, good birthday so far?
Mm-hmm. I saw Phil Steele.
There we go. I mean, no birthday is complete without seeing Phil Steele. Ralph, how are you doing, my man? Long time no talk.
I'm good. I'm a little disappointed in Shane that he went with a July 3rd birthday. Feels like he's celebrating the 249th anniversary of still being British. Real Americans were born after the 4th, on the 4th or after.
That's good.
Also, I kind of sound when you introduced me, kind of sound like you said I was going to break down in tears.
Oh, yeah. Everybody tune in. Ralph Amsden is going to have a come to Jesus moment and break down to tears ranking Texas Tech. I'm excited because before you joined the show yesterday, you were telling me that you were just, all the way in on a Big 12 deep dive. I think the conference is absolutely fascinating this year, and we are going to do what the rest of the media was scared to do. And we're going to essentially put out our preseason Big 12 rankings, but we're going to do it the only way that PHNX Sun Devils knows how, and that is in a fun way, and that's tiering. Are you ready to get started, my guy?
Most ready I've ever been for anything.
So let's establish some rules first.
Okay, please.
Oftentimes when we do this, it's kind of arbitrary. It's done with potential. It's done with, is this just clear cut? This is who's going to win the Big 12 championship.
I think so.
From least to most likely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you agree, Ralph, or do you want to put some other sort of qualifier in there?
No. I mean, it's always going to be interesting because I think last year, first and sixth place, maybe seventh place, were separated by one game. So, I mean, it's going to be fun to pretend to be definitive when this whole conference is a parody-filled mess. But yeah, I'll go with whatever you guys want.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, the one thing that is for sure is the fact that whatever we say here is going to happen, and It's fact. So you can hold us to it. Make sure you yell at Ralph Amsden on socials for when all of our predictions become right. Make sure that you let us know that you appreciated the truth that we were speaking here on PHNX Sun Devils.
Yeah, and if you tweet at me, I will read it, and my feelings will get hurt, and I will respond, and then I will apologize. So if you want the whole experience.
Ralph, it's funny. I kind of want to get your DeAndre Ayton takes, but I don't think we have time for that today. I did like your tweets, though. I thought they were funny.
I used to like him. At one point, he was the best high school basketball athlete I'd ever watched. And
dude, he was so good.
That he's also as good as he was when I was covering him as a high school junior. So that's fine.
Don't worry. It's totally going to work out in LA. There's nothing that could possibly go wrong there. All right. You ready? Let's get into it. Let's start off with an easy one. The Arizona State Sun Devils. To me, Ralph, honestly, from an unbiased perspective, as I always bring, I think they easily belong in the S tier, the most likely to be champions going into this season. Yes, they lost Cam Spigataboo, but they returned a ton of talent, including a Heisman-level quarterback, Bolitnikov-level wide receiver. Even if they don't end up winning those awards, I think they're good enough to be in the conversation. Do you agree that they're easily in the S tier?
Yeah, I not only do I agree, they also have a level of coaching continuity that you don't often see amongst very good teams in college football. You look at the price that people pay to win, and I mean, Ohio State last year lost their OC. They ghosted their DC. There's always a ton of turnover. There's a huge cost to winning. And Arizona State didn't pay that cost with their roster, and they didn't pay that cost with their coaching staff. It's only fair that the expectations be that they continue doing what they were doing. I think a lot of pressure falls on the defensive ends at Arizona State to create pressure. Outside of that, I don't see a whole lot of weaknesses within this conference, and the schedule is fairly friendly.
Yeah. What's the biggest thing standing in the way of Arizona State going back to back?
That's a great question. I think it's actually Sam Leavitt. And I'm not trying to get on his most hated list, but
Adam,
if it helps,
now there's 11 names, Ralph.
yeah, if it helps, if it whatever helps us win. But I've talked about this a lot on Spaces. I am obsessed with the evolution in thought on Sam Leavitt, and I think that every quarterback in America should be paying attention to this. Actually, any player who wants any publicity whatsoever. Right before the Big 12 championship, Sam Leavitt verbally put himself on the level of Quinn Ewers. He said he's going to go out and he's going to prove that he's the best quarterback. He had his hand smacked for it. He was admonished for putting himself on Quinn Ewers' level amongst the national media that was paying attention to the pre-Peach Bowl quotes that came out. Then he went out there and threw 0 touchdowns, including an interception with the game on the line, and became a Heisman favorite. Nothing actually. Now, if you watch that game, you realize oh my gosh, this kid is super talented. He's got a ton of moxie. There is actually a ton of positive takeaways from that game. But if you're just listing out facts, it's Sam Leavitt said that he was good, got his hand slapped, threw 0 touchdowns and an interception with the game on the line, and then became a media darling in that order. And so he is going to have to really elevate his game, but I don't see any reason why second year in this system that he can't. With his makeup, with the talent that they surrounded him with. So to me, it really comes down to Sam Leavitt, and it's not a skill level or an execution level. It's also, is he protecting himself? Because he got himself hurt last year. He did that. He got himself hurt. And we need him on the field if we're going to be successful. So it's not an impediment, but it really is kind of up to Sam Leavitt what we do. I trust Brian Ward. I trust Kenny Dillingham. I know they trust the players, and I think this is one of, if not the most talented roster in the Big 12.
Let's put them up there with the champs. Now, it'll be interesting to see, are we going to just say that is a solo tier? Or can we only put one team in champs?
And was there only one champion?
There is only one champion.
So we can alter the name of it. This is what it was last time we did power rankings. So we can alter the name of it. Maybe contenders, champion contenders.
Championship contenders.
Maybe the championship game.
Maybe
Sure.
Yeah,
so two people, two teams, championship game.
Yeah, championship game. Well, those would be the top 2 teams of the conference. The rest of our tiers are top shelf, middle of the pack, work to do, and yikes. I'm interested to hear from your perspective where that school down south falls, Ralph. Is it yikes, or are you liking what Seth Daggy is doing down there?
No. I think that was a good hire, but I think they're the worst team in the conference. I like Brent Brennan. I've always liked Brent Brennan. I thought that him and his staff were some of the best talent evaluators out in California. Anytime somebody ended up at USC or UCLA, or they ended up a 5-star out of California, you'd look and you'd see their first offer was from San Jose State. And he just seems like a good dude, but this is not a talented roster. It's horrifyingly thin. They didn't do enough in the portal to shore up what they need on the offensive and defensive line. I think that they're flat out bad. Noah Fafita for the first time without T-Mac going to be really interesting. Having an athletic director that wasn't responsible for making the coach hire is really interesting. They have two players that I've got an eye on this year that I think could be really good. Genesis Smith on the defensive side of the ball, and they got a transfer out of UT Chattanooga named Javin Watley. Absolute firecracker. Like, is going to be probably 2 or 3 times ESPN top 10 plays on a Sunday morning. Because if you give him the ball in space, he can do magical things. But up front, I really don't like how they are up front on either side of the ball, and I don't trust Noah Fafita without T-Mac. I think they're in for a really, really rough year.
God, you just hate to hear it. Breaks my little heart, Ralph. I just, so sad.
You do have a little heart.
I do have a little heart. I'm like the Grinch, but way more pale. Way less green. Okay, let's go ahead and put U of A in the yikes category. That feels super fitting. This one is...
You can just stop here.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Just look at this for a little
game,
bit.
Arizona State, yikes. U of A, the rest of them, they don't really matter. Now, Baylor, I think, is extremely intriguing because you mentioned the Sam Levitt love fest in the media. I think the Sawyer Robertson love fest is also very much alive and well. Multiple outlets ranking him as the best or one of the 2 best quarterbacks in the conference. Baylor had a surprise season under Dave Aranda last year. And for me, I really do like Sawyer, and I like what that team is doing. Are they good enough to contend for the top tier, the championship game? Do they belong in top shelf, or are people overhyping the Bears?
I think there's a lot of reason to be excited if you're a Baylor fan, especially after the last few years, because in 1 year they went from 101st in scoring to the top 20, which is very impressive. But Dave Aranda is supposed to be a defensive guy, and right now the defense is the problem. So do you believe that Sawyer Robertson is going to be able to carry this team? I think Jake Spavital is a good offensive coordinator. Fun fact, I think his first ever gig was working for Todd Graham, and now he's been all over the place. But I think they'll shore up the defense a little bit. They've got some decent linebackers. They got Travian Barnes from Florida International. He's pretty talented. And they got a couple of big name transfers, Calvin Simpson Hunt and Amarion Winston, on the defensive side of the ball. But the problem with them is their first 4 games: Auburn, SMU, Kansas State, and Arizona State. As long as they go 2-2, they'll have an opportunity to go on a run. But I think they're at risk to maybe not start so hot, which will keep them out of the conference title game. So I think that they're possibly a contender, but I wouldn't put them in the championship rung with Arizona State.
I feel comfortable putting them top shelf. There is a little worry in me is like, are we too high on Baylor after last season? But they do have, like you mentioned, the coaching continuity, and in the same way that Arizona State has, they have their starting quarterback. They have an offense that is returning some good pieces that put up a ton of points and shored up a little bit on the defensive end. I'm good with putting Baylor in top shelf. I'm actually extremely excited for the first game of Big 12 play. I think Arizona State Baylor is going to kind of set the tone for either team going through the rest of the Big 12 conference play, and whoever wins that, I think, has a good shot of contending for that championship game, and that might end up being Arizona State's only Big 12 loss this year. So there's a big chance that game, even though it's in week 4, has some pretty impactful factors. Now, speaking of impact, BYU impacted pretty heavily with their starting quarterback going out the door. We're not going to dive into the reasons behind it, but we do know that losing your starting quarterback certainly means a lot. Where would you have put BYU before Retzloff's departure, and where would you put them now?
I think borderline top shelf, and now I have the middle of the pack, and they still have a really solid offensive line. They average about 6'4", 310, and LJ Shelton is who they're going to feed the ball to all year long. They weren't going to be fully dependent on Retzlaff. They weren't last year. He was an easy guy to market, and he made some exciting plays, but he really was a middle of the pack quarterback. They return a lot of talent, but I think they lost their maybe 2 of their 3 top pass catchers. They have Chase Roberts back. He's really good. And they have just the softest early season schedule. I could see them starting 6-0 and really, really falling off.
No way that would happen to them before, right? No way they'd have a hot start and then fall off the map at the end of the season.
Right. Right. And I know BYU fans have been kind of all over the map. Like they're like, we have Jake Retzlaff, and now it's like, yeah, he was actually the problem. I'm a big Trace and Bourget
In more
fan.
way than one.
Yeah, yes. I hope they start Trace and Bourget. I hope he has a fantastic season. But I think they're middle of the pack, probably finishing somewhere between 7th and 9th in the conference.
Yeah, I think what made BYU so impactful as a team is that they were a team, right? Like they were really solid. I love the coaching that they have over there with Kalani and everybody. I'll put the middle of the pack as well. I think we're pretty much on the same page here with everything. We've got 4 teams down. Still a ton of teams to go. Arizona State leading the way so far and probably will for the rest of the episode. In the championship game category, top shelf at Sawyer Robertson, Dave Aranda, and the Baylor Bears. BYU, without their starting quarterback, lands in middle of the pack, and yikes is exactly where the University of Arizona belongs. What about Cincinnati, Colorado, Houston, Iowa State? Are there any other dark horse contenders to reach the very top category? It's Eric Ruby, Ralph Amson, and the birthday boy behind the Mac, and we'll be back right after this break. Man, let me tell you about Pure Edibles. Founded in Arizona and available in 130 dispensaries statewide, Pure Edibles is a perfect way to enjoy your 4th of July, to enjoy a regular weekend. Maybe you just want to relax at night, unwind. Maybe you want to sleep. Here's the perfect thing about it. When you choose Pure Edibles, you get the effect clearly listed on the tin. So whatever you want to feel like, you're going to feel like. There's no surprises when it comes to Pure Edibles, especially because they're designed to be ripped or bit in half, making them easily shareable with a friend, or even better, easy to dial in your exact dose. If you're new to edibles, I highly recommend to start with the lowest possible dose, work your way up, and find what works for you, because it really can be amazing to blend unique cannabinoids such as CBN, CBG, CBD, and marijuana-derived THC. For me, even sometimes when I was going through some back pain or some lower body pain, if I was working out hard and I just needed a little bit to relax, having those CBD-infused ones, well, they went a long way. Make sure you go find yourself some Pure Edibles products from one of the over 130 dispensaries across Arizona. Also, give a big shout out to Monarch Money for helping me and so many people get their finances in order. Listen, I'm always conscious of what I'm spending money on, and it's still extremely easy for me to overspend. And I feel better now because all my finances are in one place and I can track them with Monarch Money. So get control over your finances. Track your spending, savings, investments, all effortlessly so you can focus on what matters most. Cheering for U of A to suck in the Big 12. No, I'm just kidding. It's your finances. It's your big life goals. Get control over your finances with Monarch Money. The best part is use code PHNX at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code PHNX. It's a finance tool that people actually love, named Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025 and the top recommended personal finance app by users and experts with over 30,000 5-star reviews. Go get Monarch Money today. Also, want to let everybody know that we are doing another pickleball tournament here at PHNX later this month, July 26th at Chicken and Pickle. It's the PHNX Pickleball Tournament benefiting Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. Listen, we loved the event that we had last year. It was awesome, and I want to tell all of you that if you think that you can beat some PHNX talent in pickleball, well then, guess what? Sign up right now. We have an event link in the description below, and you can go to gophnx.com/events. It's Saturday, July 26th at 10 a.m. out at Chicken and Pickle. All proceeds to the tournament will they go for a good cause. So come out, play some pickleball with us, and become a diehard today so you can start trash talking at our intro offer at just $36. All right, we're back here on PHNX Sun Devils. It's Eric Ruby, Ralph Amson joining Anthony Totri on vacation, but the birthday boy is working on his birthday, and I think the best birthday gift that we can give him is a perfectly ranked tier. So far it goes ASU, Baylor, BYU, U of A. The only category to not have a team is work to do. Do you think Cincinnati falls into that category, Ralph?
I'm probably higher on Cincinnati than anyone covering the Big 12 in any fashion. I think Brandon Sorsby is an NFL quarterback. think he's got an NFL body, NFL arm. I think that they have surrounded him on offense with just a fantastic cast. I like his receivers. I like his linemen. Tawee Walker and Evan Pryor are very, very good running backs, and I think they'll be solid on defense. The issue is I don't trust Scott Satterfield at all. This is a team that averaged 10 wins a game from 2018 to 2022, and they've been terrible with him as the head coach. So I think that they're middle of the pack. I think they have the potential, that like the actual talent on this team to be top shelf. And if Scott Satterfield does something that he hasn't done recently, then maybe it'll work. But I love this roster. I loved it when we lined up against them last year and got beat. I'm glad we don't have to play them this year. And it's just a matter of whether or not they'll be consistent.
I don't know why, Ralph, but I knew you were a Sorsby supporter, a Sorsby stan, if you will. You strike me as a Sorsby guy.
I like him. And you know what?
That's
I
derogatory, by the way.
Is it?
The way I said it.
Okay. Well, I'll say this. Every year I jump on one quarterback and my track record is decent. It's decent. You will find a 2016 tweet of one game into Josh Allen's career at Wyoming of me calling him the next Aaron Rodgers. You will find several tweets of me begging Herm Edwards to wake up and offer Brock Purdy. I've been pretty decent on and Sorsby. Sorsby is my guy. He's my guy, and so I think that he's going to have a good year, and I think he's going to find himself maybe a middle of the pack NFL pick.
Okay, so the thing with the tiers is we have to get a specific order in here because it's just like our power rankings. Above
I don't
BYU?
Coach at all.
Above?
No.
Below. Okay.
Yes.
I don't hate that. Listen, I don't hate Sorsby. I don't know if I love him as much as you do, but I do think that the Sorsby hate is a little bit too much for what he could bring. I think it is valuable to have a quarterback like that. And BYU, they have unproven at quarterback, but their coach, I think they might have the second best coach in the Big 12, right? So as far as the team level goes, I'm fine with BYU ahead of Cincinnati. Colorado, though. No Colorado fans in the chat today. We had one yesterday. He even jumped in the Suns chat. It was very funny. Colorado is a team that you said they might look better this year than they did last year. Obviously, they're losing some top shelf talent. Heisman, Travis Hunter, NFL fourth round pick in Shedeur Sanders. Why do you think that they're better this year, and where would you put them on this tier?
To me, they are. So top shelf means they'll challenge for like a spot in the conference championship.
I think you're by like the last 4 weeks of the season, you have a path.
Okay. I'm not sure they'll ever have a path, but I like them above BYU and maybe on the borderline of being top shelf. And my big reasoning for this is I believe Colorado was constructed to be a showcase. Like how, everyone understands this when you're talking about Pop Warner or high school football when the dad's the coach. When Bo Nix's dad is his high school coach and he quits the year that Bo Nix graduates, like the point was to showcase Bo Nix. The way that Colorado is building is on the star power of Dion and to showcase the number one athlete coming out of high school in his class in Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. That was the entire point of this team. And in doing that, I feel like they were successful. Shedeur wasn't drafted as high as they thought he was going to be, but I feel like they were successful. And I think that opened the door for them to maybe be a little bit more normal in the way that they execute from here on out. They got a really good quarterback commit in Julian Lewis, but Caden Salter is going to play this year. And here's one of the reasons I think they're going to look more normal. Caden Salter has 1,668 rushing yards over the last 2 years. Colorado as a team has 4 less yards than that. You now have a quarterback who can move the pocket, which is going to positively affect the running game. They did get 4 new starters through the portal, but Jordan Seaton, their left tackle, he might be the best left tackle in all of college football when it's all said and done. So I think that they're going to look more functional, look more normal. And I see them kind of being about the same. What were they, 9-4, 7-2 in conference last year? I could see them maybe 6-3 in conference, 9-3 overall. But 6-3 isn't going to be good enough to be top shelf. So I would say the highest end of middle of the pack for me.
Maybe this year, them and BYU will once again play in what fans were calling the real Big 12 championship.
Right.
Top of middle of the pack, then. I think top of the middle of the pack is fine. Or would you put them below BYU?
No.
Okay.
No. I think
that's the right
they're
spot.
Far more talented.
If Retzloff was there, is BYU ahead of Colorado for you guys?
No.
Okay, cool. Houston. I think Houston's a fun team, but do they avoid yikes category? I like what they're building over there. I think they're fun. I think they might surprise a couple teams this year. I'm not exactly how much that turns out to be consistent winners. I don't think I go any higher than work to do, Ralph, but do you think they belong in that category or yikes with U of A?
So they averaged 14 points a game last year?
Yes.
They had 18 touchdowns total on offense. And they still had a top 30 defense in all of college football. Willie Fritz is a fantastic coach. They decided to go with Connor Wiegman to try to get this whole thing right, which is a very interesting. It's interesting, right?
Gross is what I think what you're trying to say, Ralph, is that it's gross.
Yeah, I would hate to be in this position, but here's the deal. They have to score.
Yeah.
They have to, because they have a 5-star committed to them at the quarterback position in Keyshawn Henderson. And like, money's good. Money helps convince people to do a lot of things, but you also need to have a functional offense over a 2-year span for a 5-star to say like, oh, like I might get an initial like check from this team to go there, but if I look bad, then it's going to affect my long-term earning ability. So they have to score. And one of the things they did is Willie Fritz didn't take his OC with him from Tulane when he came over. He corrected that and went and got him. So they might look a little more functional on offense. I think that they're probably middle of the pack after everybody. They have the type of defense. There were 2 or 3 teams in college football last year where their defense was good enough for them to be a college football playoff team, and their offense was not good enough for them to be an FCS playoff team. And so, you know what? Just out of respect for Cincinnati, let's put Houston in work to do. High-end work.
I like Houston, and maybe they're one of those sneaky teams in there if the defense can be as good as it was last year, which I think that's a hard thing to replicate, right? To have that good of a defense again. So I think work to do is fair for them, but at least we can acknowledge that they're on the right track and that by the end of the season, there's a chance you look back at this and it's like, wow, Houston ended up being a middle of the pack team. I think that's their ceiling, but realistically, I think work to do is fair.
If you gave Cincinnati Houston's coaching staff, I think they'd be top shelf.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I'm not a Scott Satterfield believer at all. Iowa State, though, I think that there is a chance that Iowa State ends up back in the championship game against Arizona State. That tier is completely alone, but there were some pretty big losses for Iowa State as well. 2,000 yards of production in the air via their wide receivers gone to the NFL. Obviously, they got a replacement in Chase Sewell, and they've tried to patch those holes as much as they could for Rocco Becht, who I think is in the conversation to be a top 2, top 3 quarterback in this conference. Is there a chance we're running it back come December, Ralph? Iowa State, Arizona State.
I think there's a pretty good chance. I'm not going to put them in the championship game, but you look at their production, top 2 running backs come back. That's 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. Rocco Becht might be as much of a reason for 2 1,100-yard receivers as anyone. You're right. Chase Sewell is a great receiver from East Carolina out where I'm at. I think he'll come in and he'll do some damage, but they also got Xavier Townsend from UCF. I think he'll be good right away. I'm a Taylor Mouser believer. He's a Basha High School graduate. He's the offensive coordinator out there. Defensively, they sucked last year. They were bad. And you guys talked about that going into the Big 12 championship game, where usually defense is their strength. One of the reasons they sucked is their top 2 linebackers went down for the season very early on. They both came back. So you have to figure there'll be some progression to the mean for them. I think they'll be a top 35 defense. maybe. And if there's not too much slippage on offense, I think they'll be good. And really, outside of the Iowa game, which could go either way, they don't have that tough of a schedule. So I would put them top shelf above Baylor for now.
Okay, I don't disagree with that. I think more proven than Baylor for sure. I like what Dave Aranda did, but I think what Aranda did was more of a surprise last year as far as coaching goes. With Matt Campbell, it was not a surprise with Iowa State. Also going in that Big 12 championship game, just the size differential on the roster was something that really stood out to me. I'm not as familiar with some of the names that they've filled their voids with, Ralph. Do you think that they're a bigger team this year than they were last year? Because that was kind of like what helped put Arizona State over the top when they faced off in December.
So Caleb Bacon and Will McLaughlin are pretty prototypical, like pro style linebackers, like Logan Wilson types. Like they could be NFL guys. And so they'll be a little bigger there. But I mean, at receiver, no. At offensive line, not necessarily. At run, their two running backs are still pretty small. So for them, a lot of it comes down to coaching and execution. And I think Rocco Becht is who BYU fans thought Jake Retzlaff was before they disowned him. Like he's actually one of the top tier quarterbacks in the Big 12.
I agree. I think the competition between Levitt, Robertson, and Becht is going to be really fascinating. And we'll get to Avery Johnson a little bit later as well. I think right now Iowa State is the closest team to Arizona State outside a championship game. What do you think, Deli Man?
Well, I was just going to say, are you going to take that, Ralph? The Sorsby disrespect that he just threw your way?
Well, coaching matters. So
okay.
I want to blame coaching for every bad thing that happens to Brendan Sorsby all year long.
Hey, everybody needs an out. I have a very interesting question to ask you once we get to a team later for another quarterback that people are really high on and maybe comparing it to your opinion on Brendan Sorsby, but we'll get there a little bit later. But first, let's put Iowa State as now the second highest team, but not in the championship game. We're still waiting to see who's meeting Arizona State at the end for our preseason Big 12 power rankings. So far, it's Arizona State in championship game. Iowa State, then Baylor in top shelf, Colorado, BYU, and then Cincinnati, if you squint, you can see it, in middle of the pack. Work to do for Houston, and then all the way down, so lonely and yikes, it's the University of Arizona. But coming up next, we've got the Kansas schools, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, Utah, West Virginia. We're rounding it all out here on a Thursday, but basically Friday edition of PHNX Sun Devils. We'll be back right after another break. Of course, we are live here in Studio K, and you know Studio K is presented by Circle K. My lovely wife and I, Megan, we went on a walk yesterday, and luckily right next to our apartment complex, of course, is a Circle K. And we're walking by, and she goes, I sure am parched. I wonder if there's anything good to drink at Circle K. And I said, Megan, of course there's something good to drink at Circle K. So we went in and of course we got ourselves a nice drink. We walked around, but that's just one of the great parts of Circle K is the convenience, but also the deals for joining the inner circle. Now you might ask yourself, Eric, to get the 25 cents off per gallon on the first 5 fill-ups, to be eligible for Circle K Days Inner Circle where I get 40 to 50 cents off per gallon, to get 3 cents off per gallon every time I fill up, or a 99-cent Froster or 79-cent Polar Pop, I must have to pay some yearly subscription fee like Phil Steele Plus. No, it's absolutely free at Circle K to join the inner circle. All you have to do is download the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details. Also, when you're walking around, you're looking down. When you walk into somebody's apartment, home, business, eventually your eyes wander downwards. And sometimes you're not as impressed, but that's because they're not tapping in with Empire Today. Now, usually I save the sweet deal for last, but not only does Empire Today give you fantastic customer service with flooring professionals, in-home estimates, next day installation, whatever you want, they've got it, but they're also going to give it to you for a cheaper price just for listening to this guy and Ralph yap about the Big 12. That's right. You get $350 off with Empire Today. So schedule your free in-home estimate today because some things are just better off at home, like U of A during bowl season. And PHNX listeners can receive a $350 off discount when using promo code PHNX. That's right, a $350 off discount when using promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday.com/PHNX for full details. Shout out Glenn, Bruv, Dennis, Sharon, everybody in the chat hanging out with us here on a Thursday, the day before July 4th, but more importantly known as the Deli Man's birthday. Good birthday still, Shane. We haven't ruined it yet.
Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed in the last 30 minutes.
No.
Okay.
Except for Brendan Sorsby. That's all.
Brendan Sorsby ruined
Brendan
Shane's
Sorsby's
birthday.
ruined my birthday.
Oh, man.
I think I'd like him a lot. I think I'd like him a lot
going-
more if his name wasn't Sorsby.
I'm actually, well, maybe we can make change the vowel sound.
Sarsby?
Soursby?
Sorsby?
Sour worse.
I think those. Yeah, I think both those
Yeah,
are worse.
definitely worse. I think we just
Or just
gotta get him to legally change his name like Rob McElhaney.
What about like B-Man?
B-Man. All right. Well, let's keep it rolling here on PHNX Sun Devils. Let's tier our next team. We just put Iowa State up in the top shelf category, but let's now move it on to Kansas. Where do we put Kansas? Not championship game for me, not top shelf for me, but definitely one of the most disappointing teams in the Big 12 last year, Ralph. Can they make a comeback this year and actually play up to their standard?
On one side of the ball, yes.
And that is?
I think they're going to be pretty cool on the offensive side of the ball. They hated, Kansas fans is who I'm referring to, hated Jeff Grimes, their offensive coordinator, who I kind of like. They hated Jeff Grimes, so they elevated the quarterbacks coach to be the OC. Jalen Daniels is back for his 15th season, and they went out and they got him Cam Pickett, Bryson Canty, Levi Wentz, and a former Alabama wide receiver. See if this sounds familiar. A former Alabama receiver who is very fast, who never played, in Emmanuel Henderson. So we got a little twins situation with our Adidas brothers out there in Lawrence. So they went out and they completely remade the wide receiver room. And I think Jalen Daniels has a really good offensive line returning. Not that he makes their life easy by the way he runs around. I think they're going to score the football, and I think they're going to get absolutely wrecked on defense. They had two of the better defensive backs in college football last year and still had one of the worst secondaries. So I don't think they're going to replace those guys talent-wise. I don't see them fixing anything scheme-wise. I think we're going to get some good old-fashioned Big 12 football out of Kansas. They're going to lose some games 45-40. They're going to win some games 45-40. I would put them high-end work to do, possibly. What's interesting is if you put them in the work to do tier, you have a whole football team. You have one good offense, one good defense.
Yeah, and one's blue, one's red. Merge them together, maybe get a purple team like we're going to talk about next in Kansas State. I'm okay with high-end work to do. I think they, if anything, not work to do, they have something to prove with this team because going into last season, they were the team picked by a lot of people to win the Big 12. And obviously Jalen Daniels' health is a big part of that. He needs to stay healthy. But, you know, this is a big season for Lance and for their coaching staff to kind of prove that they didn't just have a little flash in the pan. Right. I think high end work to do or at the very end of middle of the pack is fair, but Houston's looking a little lonely. Let's put the Jayhawks in there with the Cougs. If this was a basketball tier, they would also be close to each other, but on the opposite side of the tier.
I think if we flipped this tier list, we'd have a perfect Big 12 basketball ranking too.
Not perfect. Not
near perfect.
Houston would have to be up top.
Yeah, and Iowa State.
Yes. But there's definitely something to be said about that. There's some trends here that we are noticing. Speaking of trends, Avery Johnson has been an interesting one coming into the last couple of seasons. Obviously, a lot of people extremely high on Kansas State, and Kansas State has been one of the Big 12 teams that has still found themselves in some people's preseason top 25. The question is, Ralph, are they top shelf? Are they middle of the pack? Are you super high on Avery Johnson and somehow they're ending up in the championship game? Where do the Wildcats stand for you?
I kind of have an urge to create suspense by placing them in top shelf and then ultimately picking someone to play Arizona State at the end of this. Like that's
I'm okay with that.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
I'm good with that.
Their top shelf to me, their top 5 players on offense are all players I love, and they probably have my favorite defensive player in the entire conference in Austin Romaine. At linebacker, I think he broke the record for solo tackles at Kansas State, and he was a sophomore last year. So a lot of fun, not like an overly talented roster from top to bottom. And they made a move at offensive coordinator that I think is going to be very telling. They hired Matt Wells. And Matt Wells got fired from Texas Tech, which is what, they brought Joey McGuire in. Before that, he was at Utah State. While he was at Utah State, a couple of the country's worst offenses in his tenure there, and also a couple of the absolute best, like top tier. Like, that's how he got the Texas Tech job. So, real wild card there, to reference yesterday's show, in their offensive coordinator. But they are solid built top to bottom. Love Chris Kleiman, and we don't have to play them this year, which means that if they win that opening game in Ireland against Iowa State, I think they're going to be primed to really go on a run, because their non-conference schedule is so soft, like Charmin soft.
Yeah, we'll break down the top shelf, and we'll leave some suspense there as far as legitimately ranking them as who goes up a tier. But right now, that's Kansas State, Iowa State, Baylor, then Colorado, BYU, Cincinnati, middle of the pack, Kansas, Houston, work to do. Yikes, Arizona. I think we might be looking at our first contender for Yikes 2.0. Ralph, it's the Gundies. Oklahoma State obviously did not win a Big 12 game last year, and that was while having Ollie Gordon, or as I like to call him, the ghost of Ollie Gordon, because he was not Ollie Gordon last year. Do you think they improve this year, and do they improve enough to not belong with U of A and Yikes?
So, quarterback wasn't great for them last year. They had the oldest offensive line in the country. Didn't matter. They had went into the season with a Heisman contender at running back. Didn't matter. And on defense, they were so bad. So what would you figure would happen? You figure they'd probably go out in the portal and just turn this whole roster over, right? They didn't. They got like a one guy out of the portal that I'm kind of excited about. His name is Brian McCoy. He was an Akron middle linebacker. He was really good. But they gave up 36 points a game last year, and their answer, the definitive answer for them, is to go and get their third defensive coordinator in 4 years, and it's Todd Grantham. And that name, if you're a SEC fan, it would be familiar to you, because Todd Grantham is the reason a lot of people believe that that Dan Mullen was fired at Florida, because he was too loyal to his defensive coordinator. And Grantham hasn't run a defense since then. And so this is their answer to going 0-9 in conference and giving up 36 points a game. If they end up being good, it won't be something that can be predicted or foretold. They look awful. They belong in Yikes. I'd put them above U of A, just out of respect for 15 straight years of winning that Mike Gundy had.
Yeah, the respect factor there for sure. I was interested to see if you put them at the very, very bottom. I think there's one more team that we have still left to rank that will go in Yikes, and we'll get to them in a second. I don't have anything else to add about Oklahoma State. Is
that not the most Gundy thing ever, though?
Like, if they were just good this year?
Well, no. Seeing that the problem and being like, well, hold on. We don't need to replace everything. Let's just get the culture back.
Yeah. I think it would also be the most Gundy thing ever if they were sneaky good for the first couple of games. Wow, Oklahoma State, I don't know their non-con schedule starts, or their conference schedule starts 2-0 in the conference and then doesn't win a game after that once everybody kind of looks a little bit. Who are they playing to start Big 12 play?
I don't know, but they do go to Eugene.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh my God! I'm looking at their schedule.
I pulled up their schedule and I saw that they were going to Eugene, and I was like, "Oh, is he going to get fired mid-season?"
Dude, he might. So yeah, wow. So they start off at home against UT Martin, then they go to Eugene, and then they have Tulsa at home. First game in the Big 12 is against Sawyer and the boys in Baylor. They're hosting them, and then they get to go to Tucson, and then they get to play Houston. So.
They could start 2-1,
but there's also a chance for an absolute disaster where you're losing to the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, and then after that, Oklahoma or Cincinnati, so it's like a middle of the pack team, and then you have Tech, who will rank here in a second, but I think will go near the top. They don't have a crazy difficult schedule.
It's the easiest Big 12 schedule I think I've seen.
Yeah, Texas Tech, Iowa State, Kansas State, and Baylor, but that's 4 good teams, and Cincinnati could be good too. So. I don't know. Could Gundy end up not being the coach of Oklahoma State 365 days from now? Do we really think that's on the table?
I think the era has passed him by, and I think he deserves a ton of respect for what he's accomplished. But I think he's
a man. He's 40.
He's
Talk to him.
Not 40 anymore.
Yeah, he about to be 60, and 60 is a good time to go hang out on the lake.
Yeah.
In your One America News Network shirt.
We're glossing over that one, Ralph. TCU up next. Probably a lot of those shirts there. I think this one is fascinating. This is a team I wanted to talk about their quarterback with you, Ralph. Josh Hoover or Brendan Sorsby?
So, if you put Brandon Sorsby in a Sonny Dykes offense, he would be fine. Josh Hoover's good. He's perfect for what they do. He threw for 4,000 yards without really having a top target. Like, there's nobody in TCU that I look at and say, like, that's a first, second, third round NFL draft pick. So, Josh Hoover reminds me, oh man, I don't want this to be an insult, but do you remember when Anthony Gordon threw 50 touchdowns at Washington State?
I like that.
Just because you're not going to be an NFL player and because you're going to have your own like state farm agency in your hometown doesn't mean that you weren't great at college football. I look at Josh Hoover as a college football great playing in the perfect offense for him. He could go back-to-back 4,000-yard seasons. He really could. But for long term, I like everything that Brendan Sorsby does, and I'm officially going around and tagging Shane in Sorsby throws in Twitter clips.
Are we talking game throws though? I need to see game throws.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and also you heard how much I talked up this Houston defense, right? He started 9 of 10 last year against them, and both of his touchdown passes in the first quarter had God tier touch. I think that anyone who has him ranked outside the top 6 quarterbacks in this conference is crazy.
Okay, but what about as a whole for TCU? They got their quarterback, they got their offense, they got their coaching staff. I think they had a relatively surprising year last year. Are they good enough to be outside of middle of the pack?
I guess I don't trust them to be outside of middle of the pack because they lost to Houston last year. They barely escaped Stanford, and Stanford was putrid. They didn't really add anybody to their defense. I like Bud Clark at safety, but I don't really like anyone else. And they have one of the tougher schedules. Like they probably have one of the top 2 toughest schedules in the entire conference. If they had BYU schedule, I might guarantee a double-digit win season. But because they don't, I think they probably cap out at 8 wins. And to me, that's not top shelf. So I'd put them in the middle of the pack, maybe between Colorado and BYU.
I think the argument that I'm having in my head is the Colorado one. Is do they go ahead of Colorado or below Colorado?
I'd be fine with that too. I'd be fine with that too. Their offense is going to look fine.
I'm tie breaking here. I think TCU goes there.
That's fine. I'm not married to the fact of them above Colorado. I would consider it, but I'm fine putting Colorado ahead of them and them being in the middle of the pack.
I feel like nobody hates TCU at ASU, and I'm going to be the first person. I've decided I'm going to hate them.
Is it because Frankie?
You know it stinks though. I really like the Frog.
Yeah.
Never mind.
The frog was cool.
I'll push an agenda somewhere else.
Yeah. Speaking of pushing agendas, Shane, you've been pushing agendas anti-Texas Tech, saying that them buying the roster is not going to work. I think Texas Tech belongs somewhere in top shelf. I don't think they'll end up being a middle of the pack team. Ralph, am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy. They had their best year in 15, 16 years in conference. Last year, you could say that's because Oklahoma and Texas are gone, but they run the ball now. And that you can't dispute the fact that Taj Brooks, was getting the carries that we thought Ollie Gordon was going to get. And so they run the ball now. Baron Morton, to me, isn't one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, but they just gave him one of the best coordinators that was on the market. And we faced Texas State. We know that he made Jordan McLeod look like a pretty darn good college quarterback. So I think that they will take a step forward offensively, even if it's a small one, and defensively with the amount of money that they paid for that defensive line. I would hope that they'd get some return. I mean, they probably went maybe 8-9 million deep just on the 5 defensive linemen that they brought in. So it's hard. people spend money on stuff that doesn't work all the time. I mean, Eric Sons, right? It happens.
Hey man,
So,
okay, all right. Well, if that's where we're going, Ralph, okay.
hey, but if being a billionaire could fix everything, then this country would be perfect, and the Suns would win every championship, and Texas Tech would be in the college football playoff this year. But you can't just throw money at it. The whole thing is, though, they do have a good coach.
Yeah.
I think they have a coach, and they have good coordinators. So I'd put them in top shelf, and we can paper, rock, scissors for who's going to face ASU in the championship.
Let's do it. Let's put Texas Tech in the top shelf. We've got 3 more teams left, and then we got to tie break the top shelf and see who will be facing your Arizona State Sun Devils in the championship game. We're going to do that all right after our final break. Well, speaking of money, it's a perfect transition. Why not have your money work for you with Mountain America Credit Union? Listen, they are committed to helping their more than 1 million members through their 100 branches throughout the West. But you ask me, Eric, how are they doing that? How are they helping me out? Well, they're giving you double the amount of points on rewards credit card purchases from now until July 31st. Now, this has been going on for a couple of weeks. You might think to yourself, oh, July 31st, that's a long way away. Wrong. Only a couple of weeks away. You need to get in now and get your rewards card and watch the points pile up. Perfect for gas, groceries, travel, home projects, literally any other purchases. It's an easy way to stretch your dollar, which we all need nowadays since you earn twice as many rewards. But what are these rewards? Well, you can redeem them for things like travel rebates, gift cards, event tickets. It's a limited time only, so take advantage of it while you can. Get your details at macu.com/double. Loans are on approved credit. Offers can change or be withdrawn at any time. It's a limited time offer. Terms and conditions, yes, they apply. Also, I loved not having to apply pressure on Anthony Totri to pay up when we used a VMe to bet, because VMe is a first of its kind person-to-person betting app, and there's finally an app where you can bet with anyone on anything at any time. Now, Totri and myself, we bet on a free throw competition. I was just god awful, yet I still somehow won. I'm not proud of it, but I did win, and I didn't have to worry about the quote-unquote Venmo guy who says he's always got you. Don't worry, I'll Venmo you, and then you never end up getting the money, even though you won. But you don't just have to use VMe to do a free throw competition against the co-host of your Sun Devils show. No, you can do it for anything: sports, video games, fantasy matchup, golf games, poker nights, push-up contests, chugging contests. It could be a one-on-one challenge, it could be a group challenge, it could be for money, or it could be for free. The only thing is that you need VMe. Listen, download the VMe app and play today using code PHNX. It's available on the App Store and on Google Play. VMe, anyone, anything, anytime. And not just anyone joining PHNX Sun Devils today, the man, the myth, the legend, Ralph Amsden, calling in and helping us break down our officially unofficial preseason Big 12 media rankings. Right now, ASU up top, then Kansas State, Iowa State, Baylor, Texas Tech in the tier below them. Then in the middle of the pack, it's Colorado, TCU, BYU, Cincinnati. Work to do, Kansas, Houston, and yikes, Oklahoma State, Arizona. I said there's one more team that might belong in yikes. I believe it's this one, UCF. Do you agree, Ralph?
They're terrible.
I think that's it. I think that's all we need to say. They're terrible. Where in yikes?
Ahead of the other two.
Wow, they're terrible, but still better than U of A. That's what I like to hear. Okay,
they're in Orlando, and their whole talent base is Florida kids. They might win 3 games on accident.
That is fair.
That's the big thing about Tech, though, is like they're in Lubbock. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's all you got.
Would you take $2 million a year or for 1 year to live in Lubbock?
Yeah, but
let me ask Jalen Conyers.
The human condition gets so used to where you are after 6 months. I'm going to be sad. I can stare at that $2 million all I want. I'm going to be sad.
I think I could live in Lubbock for a year for $2 million.
I mean, I would.
I would do it. They have the internet in Lubbock, right?
I would, but I'd be sad.
I could watch Suns games in Lubbock and Sun Devils games in Lubbock. I'll be fine. How about Utah? Utah's interesting. I had Utah last year as the most likely team to be consistently at the top of the Big 12 out of just respect for what Whittingham and that program did. Obviously, complete change at quarterback there, and Devin Dampier coming in. Is Utah, are they back to being Utah, Ralph? Are they top shelf? Are they middle of the pack? Or are they work to do?
I think that they're at the top end of middle of the pack, and I'll let Shane figure out where exactly they belong. I love bringing in Devin Dampier. He has 800 yards rushing in his last 6 games. Having a mobile quarterback could be a game changer for them. What I don't love is that they have broken from their philosophy of internal development because you can't do it anymore. You have to win now. So they went really portal heavy on offense, and I don't actually know how that's going to work out for them. They have a new offensive coordinator, breaking again from tradition, but they're trying to stick with what they usually do on defense. So, they have sort of a split philosophy. I think as long as they have a winning record or it's a respectable year, I think this is probably going to be Kyle Whittingham's last year. They'll turn things over to Morgan Scalley. We'll see what things look like after that. But I love Devin Dampier. I just am not overly impressed with everything that they've brought in on offense, and I don't think it's going to gel enough for them to challenge for a spot at the top.
Deliman, middle of the pack, above Colorado, below Colorado?
I was thinking between TCU and BYU.
TCU and BYU.
I don't know. Like, what do you think?
I think.
Do you feel strong?
So I still have I think that I'm an emotional guy. We all know this. And I still have this thought in the back of my head, no way that Utah is mid 2 years in a row. Right. But it is the end of the Kyle Whittingham era. We don't know if this is the last year, but we know it's one of the last years. Devin Dampier, I like. We don't know how he'll translate to playing Big 12 football with all these new pieces. There are a lot of new pieces around Colorado as well. And TCU is the most. I think they probably have the most talent returning on offense out of any of these teams in middle of the pack besides Cincinnati.
I think I like them there.
So I think it's interesting. I think the middle of the pack, non-ironically, it's very, very close. I think I'll give Utah a respect edge just because I just don't know if they'll be lower tier, middle of the pack, 2 years in a row. Below Colorado, above TCU. I think we're betting on the Colorado talent. And like you mentioned, Ralph, not being as much of a showcase. For TCU, though, man, TCU is the one I'm looking at. And I think out of all the teams in middle of the pack, they are the most likely to take a leap forward.
I agree with you if you didn't have to play defense, because I think about the fact that Sonny Dykes think about his rosters at Cal. Never once had a winning record in conference, I believe. So, it really came down to winning close games when they made a run to the Natty, and I really respect that. I love Sonny Dykes. I think he's a fantastic coach, but he's not really overly concerned with what's going on defense. And he's got Todd Graham helping him out there on the defensive side of the ball, and that means different things to different people. So, but you are right. They did throw for 4,000 yards last year. They do. Josh Hoover runs that system to a T. Their offensive line is impressive. Cade Bennett might be one of the best offensive linemen in the whole conference, but I still defensively. I think they're going to get gashed.
Okay, we'll keep Utah above out of respect for the defense in Whittingham there. West Virginia, yikes or work to do? I don't really think there's any more of a conversation besides that.
I put them in work to do, and I'll just say this. Rich Rod rushed for 6,500 yards the last 2 years at Jacksonville State. Not himself, his players.
I'm about to say, that'd be awesome.
And he took 4 running backs in the portal. They're going to run the ball so much. So put them in work to do, but I think they're on the right path.
End of work to do behind Houston?
I put them above Kansas. I think no one is going to run the ball like West Virginia this year, and it's going to bite some people. But they're still not going to be good enough to win any games that matter. But I think that they're going to play keep away quite a bit.
Okay, so now we have the important question to answer here. Starting from the bottom to the top, it's Arizona, Oklahoma State, UCF, and yikes. Houston, Kansas, West Virginia, and work to do. Cincinnati, BYU, TCU, Utah, Colorado, and middle of the pack. Then Texas Tech, Baylor, Iowa State, Kansas State, and top shelf. We need to move one from top shelf up to championship game. What does your instinct tell you out of Kansas State, Iowa State, Baylor, and Texas Tech? Who is reaching the final Big 12 game with Arizona State?
There's only one person in the Big 12 that I'm scared of this year, and it's Texas Tech offensive coordinator Mac Leftwich. So my vote would be Texas Tech. Ooh,
interesting. See, the Deli Man has me a little wary on Tech, just a little bit. And it's weird because you think, okay, you can't buy a roster, but we have seen that a roster can come together with a lot of additions and be successful, especially on defense with Arizona State. So before we give our final answer, I want to remind everybody who is watching on TV that the party always continues over at gophnx.com, which means that it's time for overtime here on PHNX Sun Devils. Hit the like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Deli Man, I'm assuming you don't want Texas Tech to be in that championship game category.
I mean, I don't, but I'm willing to hear arguments.
Well, who would you put into the fray?
I think I'm a little higher on Kansas State than everyone else is, just because of how down they were last year.
See,
that would have been my 1B. So I'm fully, again, I think they're the number 2 running back that they brought in. He's going to be 1,000-yard rusher. I think Avery Johnson. People think he's just a runner, but he threw 25 touchdowns last year, and
he was so hurt.
Good receivers. Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do this really quickly because I personally look at Iowa State and I think those pesky SOBs, they might be there too. But I'm fine with Kansas State, Texas Tech. Let's do like a 30-second poll in chat super quickly and do it between Texas Tech and Iowa State. That will be the deciding factor since we cannot make an official decision here on PHNX Sun Devils as we put that poll into the chat. I think the most beautiful thing.
Texas Tech and Iowa State for what?
Texas Tech and Kansas State, sorry, for who will move up to championship game. Because I think that is extremely close. The best part is, though, Ralph, that we're talking about Arizona State. Well, that gets put into chat. Which of these predictions are you least confident about?
I would say that I know the least and am least confident about BYU because what if Trayson Bourget is the man? Like what if he's better than Jake Retzlaff and because LJ Shelton, like giving him the ball 250 times is their key to success. And if he stays healthy, I think that they can grind out so many games. So I think BYU has the potential to be in the championship game. They also could completely bottom out, but their schedule is so soft. So just that cushioning could give them the momentum to then start believing in themselves. And, then it's all bets are off. They could win 10, 11 games.
You know what they say, Ralph? The MAC is the Big 12 of the Midwest. He has experience already. Trayson Bourget, let's see it.
We had a tie in the chat. Now it is broken. It's going to be Kansas State. We're calling it there. Kansas State, 62%. Texas Tech, 38%. Congratulations to the actual Wildcats.
Okay. Do we like the top shelf tiering right here? So basically what we're saying is if we're doing our Big 12 power rankings, 1 is ASU, 2 is Kansas State, 3 is Iowa State, 4 is Baylor, and 5
I think
is
we
Texas
just need.
Tech.
I think we need to put Texas Tech above Iowa State since they were the one that was in contention. I like Iowa State above Baylor just because they've proven it a little bit more. But I do think that's very close. Other than that, I'm very comfortable with where we're standing, top to bottom. Are you okay with that, Ralph?
It looks good to me. They should just announce this as the official Big 12 media poll.
We're not scared. We're not scared. We're going to put this out on socials. We don't care. We know that these things don't actually matter because they got to actually play the games. But it's July and we needed content, so we did it anyway. We appreciate so much Ralph for joining us for another incredible episode. These are always so much fun breaking down college football with our guy, Ralph Amsden. Of course, you can follow him at Ralph Amsden. He does about 1 million different things. You want to let the people know what you're working on right now?
I am writing an SEC preview for my guy George Reister at Unafraid Show, and Arizona Varsity, which I've been the publisher of for the last 10 years, just moved from Rivals to On3. So our website's going undergoing a little bit of a makeover, and anybody who's interested in high school sports around the state of Arizona, we'd love to have your support.
Yeah, do support Ralph. He does incredible work. Become a smarter football fan here on the local scene and, of course, nationally with college football. So we appreciate him. Like I said, you can follow him at Ralph Amsden. You can follow the show at PHNX_Sun Devils. You can follow the birthday boy. Yay! The birthday boy, the Deli Man at Shane Deef.
I hate you as always.
Aw.
That was horrible.
You're welcome for the cinnamon roll as well.
Yeah, thank you.
I could have sung happy birthday on air. You can follow me at ERIKRUBY. You can follow Phil Steele at Phil Steele CFE.
We're done. Get out of here.
And go Devils in peace.
We all silly like the mayor.